Okay, so I'm on a couple of minutes early, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. My phone is low, so I have a little wonky here. So because I have to prop it up. So if I'm not exactly in screen, I apologize. So talking today about how the anti-aging era is over and how to actually age with power. And I've been talking about this for a long time. I just want to start by saying that when I first started talking about aging, um, it was the 1990s. And if I went anywhere and spoke at all about aging, everyone was completely bored. People didn't want to talk to me. They were looking for any way to get away from talking with, the most boring person in the world. So what the real problem was is that people were really not into talking about aging. The people had a lot of bias against aging. There have been so many laws that have changed since then. You are no longer required to exit certain working fields, by 62, things like that. You're allowed to stay in academia and other places that you might have not been able to continue to work in. So there's been a lot of changes. And I just want to go over some of that because a lot of people think that that aging is something that is a taboo topic, or that it's one that's overused, or it's complicated. So let me break it down a little bit. Society glorifies youth, and that happens in the media all the time. And that can make it very confusing because there's all kinds of ads about wrinkle creams and looking younger and everything that happens to go with all of the stereotypes about not wanting to age, being anti-aging. But at the same time, we see nowadays so many people succeeding and thriving as they grow older. So we're getting mixed messages. So we'll hear all about, on social media, in media, in marketing, how, we have to worry about money as we get older, how, we have to worry about how we look, about how our bodies operate, about being relevant. Yet at the same time, we are seeing people who, hello, good to see you. We're seeing a lot of people come on. We've had two presidents elected who are in their late 70s and 80s. So, I mean, this is something that we're seeing it, we're feeling it, it's all over, we're talking about it, but we're getting mixed messages everywhere. So there are a lot of people that are in powerful positions who are older, but we're also talking about how everybody should be younger. And so there's a lot happening. We have a lot of people who are midlife and older who are starting in new kinds of careers, starting companies, becoming entrepreneurs, doing all kinds of things. And this is something that is really kind of new. Hold on a second. I have to get rid of somebody here. Okay, there we go. So this is something that I try to talk about because I've written about this. I was an aging researcher for a long time and studied everything no one wants to have or get as they grow older, and pivoted to look at what do we have to look forward to. And it seems that the dialogue between the two, those who talk about great things as we age, don't really always talk with the people who are saying some of the things that are positive. So we have the negative and the positive not talking together. Hold on a second. I need to get rid of somebody. There we go. So sorry about that. I just had to get rid of somebody who was leaving weird comments. So, hey, Nellie, good to see you. Nice to see you today. So again, I'm talking about aging, how to age with power. We get a lot of mixed messages about aging. I'm somebody who's been in the field of aging since the 1990s, and good to see you here, Nellie. And so I really want to talk about it because I've been able to see a lot of change over time and how we have been adapting to all of the messages that we get that are mixed about aging. So we are really internalizing aging and ageism in different ways. So if we look at career, we'll hear that people don't want to, VC people don't want to fund older people in new ventures. Yet we'll see people who are older starting new entrepreneurial endeavors. So we get those two mixed messages. People will have much more confidence when they're older, and that is touted. But people will still talk about the wonderful aspects of youth. Relationships are really talked about in a way that is both looking at youth and at age in two different ways. So this is interesting in how we internalize it all. So if I backtrack it just a little bit and I go back to when I was first working in the field of aging and the internet just came out and Google was around. So this was probably late 1990s, early 2000. I don't remember the exact date, but it was a long time ago. And I typed in, old man. And the only thing that came up were pictures of Santa Claus. So I didn't get any. It was just tons of pictures of Santa Claus. There wasn't anyone there. You were born in 97, so it was around the time you were born, Nellie. So around that time, people didn't even have a concept of what to put about an old man in Google. So a few years later, I did a search, and I had started a blog back then, which was brand new to do one of those things called Imagine Age. And I was talking about research and everything about aging, and I was doing research, so I was able to put it out there. And I then found that the pictures that came up were people who were older and frail, and they were not positive. So it was all about stories about people, being victimized who were older and, had been in some way defrauded of their money or something like that. And so it was making it really scary, only scary stories that were around aging. And the pictures of the men were all frail in wheelchairs and things like that. So around, the early 2000s, I was able to speak with, maybe around 2010, I was able to speak with The Atlantic at a roundtable that they held. And during that time, people were saying, hey, there has to be a new narrative here. And so I mentioned, media needs to pick up better stories about aging, because you're saying that you want to support aging and everyone is growing older. And what they did was they started to put out more pictures that were better. So if you type in old man in Google, you're going to see pictures of more vibrant individuals. They aren't all negative photos. They're people doing things who are active, and the storyline is much better. And it takes a lot of work to get there. It wasn't like, this just happened organically. It took people putting new pictures and new things up there. So if you look at the pictures of the Golden Girls and that television show, they were all in their 40s and early 50s. They're younger than, say, J-Lo, who is out there on big stages and does not look at all like any of the Golden Girls. So we have been switching how we internalize aging. And there's a lot more positive that comes around with that. If you look at some of the songs that were, pretty popular, the ones that were made by the Beatles, for example, When I'm 64 was a song about, will you still love me when I'm 64? That was considered very old. Nowadays, that is not at all old. And most people are hoping to still work at, the age of 64. So we're internalizing all of this in ways that are kind of messy. It's not exactly easy to internalize all of this because we still are getting some mixed messages. We're being told, the people who are in office, whether it's, Biden or Trump, whoever, is there, that they're too old, but we keep voting older people in. So we have mixed feelings about this. And that can make it tricky. It can make us feel like we're not looking forward to getting older. There's stuff that we don't look forward to, but as we get older, we still feel that we have power. We still feel like we're youthful. We still feel good. So this is something to sort of try to work with and move the needle forward and feeling really good about growing older, and that it's just something that we do, as opposed to putting a number to things and saying, this is how you should feel at a certain age. Because, like, Nellie, you were born in 1997. Well, if I were to say that everybody who was born in 1997 should feel a certain way, or be in a certain life stage, or be doing certain things, it puts a lot of pressure on people to look a certain way, to be doing certain things, to be experiencing things. It gives us that FOMO, like, oh my gosh, am I missing out? Somebody is getting a degree, somebody is, getting married, somebody's having a kid. It makes everybody feel like they have to keep up with the Joneses. And that happens with age and how we internalize where we should be, what makes us feel successful. And that all ties in with identity and the psychology of identity and the transitions that we naturally go through that are age specific, like at 35, 45, 55, 65. If you look at all of those ages, we can tie our identity transitions to those ages. And we want to make sure that we're feeling good at all of those. So, we're figuring out who we are all the way up until we're about 35. And then we start to hit the stage where we say, hey, who are the people that I want to be around with all the time? And then you hit midlife at about 40, between 40 and 65. And that's when you're saying, okay, now what? I want to give back. I want to do some of the things I couldn't do before. I have a little more bandwidth now. I want to experience new things. You get more freedom, more wisdom, both at the same time. And that's a time when people say, I don't want to feel like I'm aging out. I want to feel instead like I'm leveling up. Yeah, that can happen. Thanks for sharing that happened to your dad. It's not unusual. Most people feel like we want to level up, that we want to never feel like we're aging out of anything, but instead that we are moving up a level. And so we get to feel like that when we're kids. If you talk to a little kid, they can't wait to turn 18. They can't wait to be adults. They can't wait to move forward. And as soon as you hit adulthood, people will say, okay, wait, I want to slow it down now. I want to stop the clock. But really, we're always looking to continue to level up. And an example of that is that I've known two people now who are in their 50s who decided to go on for education, to get degrees from Ivy Leagues. They didn't do that when they were younger, and they had that on their bucket list to do that, and they wanted to do it. And people said, why would you do that when you're that age? And the answer was because they can. At a certain point, you want to do things because you want to do them. Maybe you have things on a bucket list, or you say, I don't ever want to feel like I missed out on something. So I'm going to go experience some things that maybe other people did when they were younger, but I'm going to do them now. And so, hold on a second. I have to get rid of a couple of people who are in here. There we go. So there's a very persistent person coming in. So when we think of some of these things and how we're looking at aging and how we're looking at leveling up, if we continue to look at things as leveling up instead of loss or aging out of things, it allows you to feel like you are able to go and live life with power. Like, if I wanted to go get another degree, if I wanted to do something like that, or if I wanted to try something new, I could say to myself, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to level up in this area, as opposed to saying, I'm doing something that I should have done a long time ago. And they really are certain things that we can do that with. So sorry, I'm reading comments while I'm going through this. So Um, anyway, when we're in midlife and when we're hitting when we're starting to age, we are really looking at purpose. And so when we're younger, we're looking to sort of check the boxes that are put in front of us, like, you know, education, meeting somebody, finding a significant other, getting a job, having a career, get a house, do whatever it is that's on our bucket list. And that ends up changing. So midlife can look like a lot of different things. That's when people are doing things like downsizing. They're not looking to level up to an amazing new big place. They're looking to downsize maybe. They're doing some of the things that are the opposite of what they were doing when they were younger. And people are also pursuing some of the things that maybe didn't interest them then, like some people getting an education, another degree, or a first degree. People trying jobs that they never tried before. People deciding not to have one job that's one full-time job, but taking on several jobs, so that they can sort of work out of a pie and have certain aspects of their life covered in terms of how they feel psychologically, so that they get a lot of purpose in their everyday life. So it's a time of option. And so my hope is that we will give ourselves a permission slip to evolve instead of looking at life as age and number. And I should be doing this. I should have done that. I didn't do this. Now I can't do that. It really allows us to not have to pretend, that we can go out and just be very authentic, that we can say, I haven't done this. It's all right. I'm okay with that. Or I haven't done this. I'm going to do this, or something like that, so that we don't put a number to anything. So try it out. Be done trying to be a past version of yourself. Try to level up. What do you want to level up to? What do you want the next, not even decade, the next year to look like? What do you want to do that's new and different? And remove the age from it. Remove whatever it is that you're saying to yourself, I missed out on that. I should have done that when I was 10 years younger, or I should have been doing that all along. To start now feels awkward. I teach classes at the college level, and oftentimes older students will feel like they didn't do it right. And I'm thinking, what are you kidding? You're doing it. It doesn't matter. When you're 85, are you going to remember how old you were when you got your degree? No, it doesn't even matter at all. So give yourself permission to be done trying to be a past version of yourself. Give yourself the permission to be who you are now and what you want to be doing, whatever age you are. So, what we do know is that the brain doesn't just decline, right? So you may see certain things that you age with that might come into play, like that. Hey, McPlay GT, thank you. I appreciate you. Good to see you. So your brain doesn't just decline. Now, there are certain things about your brain you can have, you can forget names, things like that. No big deal. But it rewires. So as you age, you end up being able to do everything much quicker than a person who's just learning it. You're able to do things much more efficiently, even if your brain is aging a little. So don't even worry about that. Midlife has a huge creativity spike. People in midlife tend to be super creative, and that's because they have the bandwidth and they've also learned a lot. So this is a time to really think that if you're not in midlife, think to yourself, I've got all the time in the world to do whatever I want to do. And if I need to really put in some time and work or something, I'm really busy right now. Realize that your time is going to become much more your own in midlife, and you can let that creativity really spike at that point. So you have something to look forward to. You have a leveling up to look forward to. And, this is something that's important because stress really impacts our energy in our 30s and our 40s. And this shifts in later years. We end up not being stressed by the same thing. If you talk to midlifers and older adults, they don't really care about what other people are thinking or saying or doing. They're really much more focused on themselves. And so, they're really focusing on the cognitive strengths that they have because those tend to increase with age. So if you're really good in math, my mother-in-law, who's 99, can do all kinds of complex math in her head. That never went away. She is still good at that. If I were to put like a cash register in front of her, she could figure out the tax on whatever it was in her head. And that doesn't go away. Like those sorts of things continue on. So we shouldn't expect to have a lot of deficits. We shouldn't expect to, really have a negative future. We should be thinking of, what do I want to always accomplish? What is my purpose? How can I level up and not put the age on it? So that way you can always be thinking about your future in a positive way. So some things you can do that kind of give you a little boost and are some practical habits are, try to experience joy. And I know that that sounds easier than it is to do it, right? But let me give you some examples. So if we use joy as like a biological nutrient that we is like taking a vitamin, um, if you're consciously aware of having joy, you can try to insert that into your day. So was able to say, put some games out at our table in our living room so that if people come in, we'll spontaneously start to play those. You can set up your life so that you have things around you that will bring you joy. You can put things out there that you enjoy doing that will, maybe it's music, maybe it's books, whatever it is, you can sort of sprinkle things around that will help you to experience joy. You should do, if you can, a 5-minute daily focus reset. Now, it could be longer, it could be shorter, but just a focus reset. And that just means that you sit and you ground yourself. And they have all kinds of really good apps for this. You can go right on YouTube and find all kinds of amazing 3-minute, 6-minute, mindfulness meditation, things that are really focus resets. So if you sit and you just do something that really makes you stop thinking about the things that are racing in your mind that you should be doing or making you anxious, it'll reset you. And then, we are really not good at being curious as we get older. When you talk to a little kid, they'll ask, how, why, what is that? They'll ask all those questions. And we stop doing that when we get older. So try to do that. Try to ask a why or a how. And I can tell you that I had to really work on this. If I would ask a question in the household of all the people who are living in the house, and I'd say, oh, what was the score of something, or how old is that person, or where is that in the world? And my initial reaction would always be to just not be curious enough to go look it up. But I have a phone with me, so I can. So I've made it a challenge to be curious enough to look up those answers to the things that I ask questions of. And you know what? I like it. And then I share that with people. And I've been encouraging others to do that too. But that was something that I was encouraged to do by my husband. He was like, why don't you just look it up? And I finally did. And that curiosity challenge, if you give yourself that every day, is very helpful. And it can be on anything, and you don't have to do it all day long. Just pick something that you can challenge yourself with curiosity and either look it up or engage in it or ask about it, anything you want. And then try something new. Every day, if you try something new, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, it could be go sit in a room you never sit in. A lot of people just stick to the same room. Go sit in a different chair that you never sit in. Go do something new. Call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. Text somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. Get novelty into your life, because this is very helpful when we're trying to level up. You can never level up if you are stagnant, if you're just the same old, same old. You have to do these little tiny things that make you just push you through to get to do the next thing to level up. So, um, you can also do a little exercise. Think of one thing that you've learned in the past 5 years that your younger self couldn't have handled. What is there anything at all that you learned in the last 5 years that your younger self could not have handled? There is absolutely going to be something there that your younger self couldn't have handled, but that you can handle. So really every year that you live, your brain is getting better. You're better at things than you were 5 years ago. You're smarter at things. You're more efficient at figuring things out. You know how to do things. And that is something that we forget. So if you look back to 5 years ago and, maybe it was that you couldn't make eggs, maybe that now you can make eggs great. Maybe it could be anything. Don't think it has to be something big. Think of something, anything at all that you couldn't do as well and that you can now handle much better. So another thing that most people don't realize is that emotional intelligence peaks later in life, and that is a huge superpower. So in your 20s, everybody's insecure in their 20s. There's so much insecurity. You're worried about what you say, how you dress, what other people think about you, what kind of car you drive. You want to look up, always like you have it all going on. That changes in your 40s. You start to get more boundaries and clarity, and you start to really understand yourself more. It's totally appropriate to be insecure when you are in your 20s because you're figuring out who you are. So you're trying to, you're putting on a lot of different hats. And that's a time though of insecurity. So by the time you hit your 40s, though, you have boundaries on the things that don't matter to you, and you have clarity about the things that do matter to you. So you're increasing in your confidence because you're good at some things. You've been doing them for a long time. So we stop people pleasing as much in midlife. We start self-leading. We stop being led by others and start leading. And we have more emotional regulation, which means that you can have better relationships with friends, with, partners. You can have better decision making. You're just you're not going to get triggered as easily in your 40s and older. So, you can do things like have a 30-second boundary phrase, a phrase that you're going to have when you need a boundary put into place. That's going to help you so that you can say, oh, wait a second, that is something that used to trigger me. I am not going to be triggered by that. And you give yourself pause to think about it. You really, if you're able to take a look at your emotions and what it is that you get triggered by, you can do a lot of different things. And we're much better about it in our midlife. But some of those things are, we don't hang out with the people that trigger us. We tend not to do that anymore. And we aren't that good at that when we're younger. We also avoid a lot of the situations that might trigger us in terms of, making us feel really like we want to lash out at somebody or lash out at ourselves or, something like that. So in our midlife, we start to put up boundaries and not accept some of those things and not accept, people that don't treat us well, situations that aren't good for us, those sorts of things. So take a look at anything that triggers you. And the holidays are a time that people can get triggered. And, really give yourself something where you can say, oh, right, what can I do to put up a boundary around this so that I can avoid having a bad day or lashing out or something like that. So that's easier said than done, but just writing it down, just thinking about it is very helpful because it makes it so that the next time that you come across one of those, because we do come across all of these things all the time, it gives you a pause. It helps you to just say, oh, I'm going to step back. I'm going to give myself 30 seconds before I respond. Um, you can also give yourself a meaning audit. So as we get older and we're looking to age with power, think about what gives you meaning, what energizes you, what makes you happy, what makes you feel good. When you think of the things that drain you, most of us can think very clearly about the things that drain us, but what energizes you? What makes your, battery go? What makes you really feel great? Think about that and give some real thought to that, because the things that energize us are really the things. Your poodles. I love watching your poodles. Those poodles are amazing. If anybody's a dog lover, if an energizing thing can be watching dog videos, that I actually love dogs. And you might like to spend time with animals. You might like to be around pets, any kind of pet, cats, whatever animal you like. What energizes you? What makes you feel really good? It can be that. It can be an activity. It can be walking. It can be exercise. It could be music, certain kinds of music. It can be anything at all. But we all have different things that energize us. What are you good at? And whenever I ask people this, they have a hard time telling me what they're good at. And I really find this interesting when I'm teaching students, because I can see all the things that they're good at. And I'll sit around, I'll give hints and, really try to help them to see it. And we're often not good at seeing what we're good at. So take a minute. And you know what? If you are having a trouble figuring out what you are good at, ask somebody else, hey, can you just tell me, what am I good at? Give me a couple of things that I'm good at. And people will usually have no trouble telling you. You might be good at being funny. You might be somebody who's good at solving complex problems. You might be somebody who's really good at being a rock for people. You might be good at all kinds of things that you just take for granted. So if you have a problem thinking of things that you're good at, ask somebody else to tell you. And who can benefit from what you know? So if we're going to age with power and age well, we really want to be able to, um, you know, give a piece of ourselves and what we're good at to others. It really does make us feel good. So who can benefit from what you know? Who can benefit from any bit of information that you're good at, or anything at all that you're good at? And if you think about that, that's going to help you to feel more powerful, because you're going to be able to give something that you feel is meaningful to somebody else. And it's kind of like being immortal. You live on in that person, and you live on by whatever you're giving to others. So people might benefit from your holiday traditions, your values, your culture, your religion. It doesn't have to be, it is difficult to think of it. I know. But that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's not easy. That's why people have trouble with it. So if you think about the things that people can benefit, I'm going to just give you one of the most basic things, because this is actually something that I lived through. So I moved far away from my family. I live pretty far from them. And one year I had my uncle come visit for Thanksgiving. And he came out, and I make the same dinner every Thanksgiving. Same exact meal. It's made from my grandmother's recipe cards. It's exactly the meal that she made. She had 6 kids. They all grew up eating this every year. And then I got the recipe cards from my mom, and I make it. So he came out one year, and he got so emotional because he was eating what he said was his childhood. It meant so much to him. He benefited from that. It was something I didn't even think of. I didn't even know that anybody would benefit from eating that entire recipe. So I then sent him the dinner the following year in a package so that he could have it. But you don't know, unless you really think about it, who could benefit from what you know. I know how to make my grandma's recipes. Does that take rocket science? No. It just takes saying, "Ooh, I bet my uncle would like to eat that." It's going to make him remember his childhood. So it could be anything. It doesn't have to be, that you know how to do complex math and somebody could benefit from that. It could be some of the most common ones that we give are culture, our values, our traditions, our whatever it is that we think is important. It's passing that on to somebody. And it doesn't have to be a relative. It could be anybody. And an example I'll give you for that is that when there was somebody that I knew quite well and would go to visit, and I was helping him out. And he was in his 90s, and he was a man who all of his life had a really, kind of a fancy apartment. And he had like a glass table that was everything was kept pristine. And the glass table was really nice. And he had chairs that had fancy coverings on them. And all the couches were like, floral and nice and, like with a white background. Anyway, he didn't have children and he didn't have any nieces or nephews. And so when I went to meet with him, he loved children. And it turned out that he started inviting the 3 little neighbor boys that were really little kids over for ice cream every Wednesday. And he would serve them ice cream in these I don't know how expensive these bowls must have been, but they had like gold rim around the edges that was like real gold. And he served it to these kids, and it was pretty funny to see because they would bring their guinea pig over with them and stick it on the table, and the guinea pig would be there. It was such a mess. It was like hilarious. But when they were there, he was able to impart some of the values that he had to the kids. So much so, and of course he got from them too. He actually loved having them, so much so that when he died about 3 years later, the kids, who were pretty young, asked to go to his funeral, and they all talked about what they learned from him and what he taught them and what mattered to them about him. And it was all values. It was all this. They just were so comfortable being around him every Wednesday while they were eating their ice cream. And he would just talk to them about what it was like when he was younger, and he would talk to them about other things. And that was something that they benefited from, enough so that they wanted to speak about him at his funeral. So we never know, unless we sit and think about it, who could benefit from what we know. And, so think about these things. It's called a meaning audit. Just give yourself a meaning audit and figure out what energizes you. What are you good at? Who could benefit from what you know? And just do one little thing. It doesn't have to be that you try to accomplish something big. This person that I just talked about did 1 hour activity with the neighbor kids every Wednesday, and that was it. It wasn't a big deal for him. It was a pleasure, and they got so much from that. I am an applied developmental psychologist. So my area that I've done research in is midlife and aging, but I'm an applied developmental psychologist. I have a PhD. So when we think of aging with power, we want to really look at everything that is, that is important to us. And not look at, I'm going to look at the material things, but the things that, what if there was a flood or a fire? What's important to you? And when I talk to people, it's always their values and it's always people. So I used to work with people at the end of their lives, and no one cared about any possessions. They just didn't. They cared about people. They cared about their pets. They cared about, their values. They cared about those kinds of things, their traditions. That stuck with them, and that was what mattered to them. So if you can start to think about that earlier, that's something that really matters to most people. Spend the time with people. That's not a regret you want to have later. So community is huge. It becomes more and more important to us as we age, because we realize that community is really what allows us to get involved with the things that energize us, that get involved with the things that align with our values. So aging, with power is really aligning with what matters to you. And hey, Soul 8 Lens, good to see you here. So this has really been something that shows itself because there's a loneliness epidemic. And the realization of this loneliness epidemic started in England, where people were realizing that there were a lot of people who weren't connected with others and were suffering from loneliness. And this was causing people to become physically and emotionally, you know, less well off than they were or could have been. And we're noticing that in the US as well. So there is an epidemic. There's something called social prescribing, where people get prescribed connection instead of medicine, just like it is a medicine. Um, so connection is really an antidote towards poor physical and emotional living. And older adults are becoming the most trusted sort of content creators in terms of putting out information about what it's like to grow older and what it looks like to grow older. So, in terms of um, being an older individual, getting people connected and plugged in with younger people is incredibly important, because most people who are boomers are saying, "Hey, I didn't have anybody to guide me." And Gen Xers are saying, "Hey, I'd like to have a guide also." It's time that we start saying, "Hey, we are trusted content creators of growing older. Let's start passing this information on to others so that they will know what to expect as they grow older." And so we have this. This is the best time to get people plugged in and into communities and different programs and different one-on-one things, and to get people in both directions interacting. So that I look at it like, if we don't do that, we're burning down libraries. We'll never get that information back that we're losing from individuals who are aging and who are disconnected from others. Everybody has something important to talk about or share, or to um, you know, give some wisdom for. Um, and we do know, there is something that's free that you can do with this, and that's mentorship and influence. We can do those two things, and it doesn't cost anything. And most people think, I'm going to send somebody in to go spend time with whoever that lonely individual is. And they find out that that lonely individual is like a library filled with unbelievable information that they were so excited to be able to get, which is either what life was like, or insights into how things work, and how to avoid pitfalls in certain things, how you can be resilient, all kinds of things, well beyond, hey, what stock should I pick, or something like that. So these are the kinds of things that if a person says, hey, I'm interested in mentoring, I'm interested in getting involved or having an influence, there are so many places that people just don't know that you can get connected with. Like any of your faith-based organizations, those are great for intergenerational things. Getting involved in Rotary, Lions Club, Chamber of Commerce, any of those local things, the library, adult ed, any kind of thing like that. SCORE. I know a lot of people go and they'll work for SCORE as volunteers so that they can mentor people in starting companies. You name it, it's out there. And it's just a simple Google search to find out. It's, looking on Eventbrite and things like that and finding out what's going on in your community and engaging, and you will be mentoring and influencing without even realizing it. You can do it right here. I've learned a lot from a lot of people on social media because they're posting, they're making content, and I'm learning. And that's something that, a person can also do that doesn't cost anything. So some of the practical things that you can do is you can build a community intentionally. You can meet people right here on social media. Be intentional. If there's somebody that has a similar value, that they're posting similar things, connect. Start sharing some of the posts that you do, liking each other's stuff. That is building a community. If you are somebody who says, I'm not ready to go step outside yet, okay, stay inside and do it here on social media. Um, Share your experience, share your story. That can impact others. A lot of people think, oh, my story is no big deal. It's just very average. There's nobody that has an average story. Nobody. So, I mean, they made a whole television show. Seinfeld was all about being ordinary, and having an ordinary day. It's going to impact someone. So, turn your experience into some kind of a leadership where you're starting something that's going to make impact. You could do that here. You could do that anywhere in your community. And it's where, if you're in midlife and you're getting older, the way to age with power is to stop being led and to start leading. And there are some people who are really good at leading and automatically think of leadership, and there are others who don't. So if you're one of those who doesn't, and a lot of people don't, you're not alone. Start to think of, where are you good at leading? Are you good at leading? And that's where you go back to, what are you good at? And you can start to think to yourself, okay, I could probably lead in, maybe you could lead cooking. There are people who lead that right here. You could lead that anywhere. You could lead in flower arranging. You could lead in anything. In interacting with animals, whatever it is. You do not have to. Most people think, oh, if I'm talking about that, I'm thinking about something that's like that you learned in school. And most people want things that aren't really related to a degree, but that are really related to a person's lived experience. So turn your experience into leadership in some way. Whatever you've done, see if you can lead somebody in it. If you've had an experience that you've overcome, share that, because somebody else is probably going to benefit from that. That's leading. And then, tag somebody, name somebody who is older and who inspires you. Every year in one of the classes that I teach, I go online and I find a whole lot of people. And luckily there's a lot now of individuals who are older, who, are bodybuilders in their late 80s, things like that, who've done really amazing things. And I share it with the young students that I teach, who are, college age. And the reason I do that is because most people get inspired. These guys are not doing as much as these people who are much older, and it gives them a new frame. So while you're out there showing people what you're good at, you're able to also keep things really, keep inspiring people. Let's see here. Oh yeah, you know what? You're right there with everybody else. Keep, thinking along the lines of paid things. No, no, no. Paid is not necessarily what I'm talking about at all. In fact, I rarely talk about paid things. Yeah, you are good at working with the dogs. That is something that if a person sees that, they may say, you know what, I want to get a dog. They might say, wow, I'm feeling really relaxed watching this. It doesn't have to be paid things. And most people are inspired not by paid things, but by people doing the things that they love. So if you even look at content creation online, it is not mostly educational. It is most people are watching the things that people are doing that they do themselves, that they enjoy, and it inspires them. That, it's the everyday things that really make a difference for individuals, because we live every day and want to take in what other people do. So thanks for pointing that out. Definitely make sure that you are, when you're thinking of this, you're considering it not paid things, but life things, lived experience. And so those are all really good things. So let's see, we are conditioned to marry success and good with things we get. You are so right, monetarily rewarded for. That's why, exactly what you say. That's why it's hard for us. We have two different thoughts in our minds about aging. And that's because we look at the sort of, we look at what we're told and what we see about aging. And then we also say, wait, but it doesn't match with how I feel and, the things that I get pleasure from. Most people, they'll talk about the success of things as, what kind of house do you have? What kind of car do you drive? What kind of job do you have? A title of some sort. And all of the people that I've worked with at the end of life, and I've worked with a lot of them, nobody cares about that stuff. They just don't. So tie any of the stuff that you want to pass to others to your experiences, your values, whatever it is that that you really think is important with you, that you could carry with you. If there was a flood or a fire, you don't have to carry it out the house. It's with you automatically. So those are the kinds of things. The being generous, which was the guy with the ice cream. It's anything at all that you can think of. So if you're in the if you're going to start to look at some take homes for this, start to look at identity. Who are you becoming today? Because you're never done with your identity. Your identity is never set in stone. You're always adding, you're shifting, you're saying, I'm not this anymore, I'm this now. If you were to look at who you were at 5, are you the same? You're not. That's how you're aging. How is that? Meaning that you are looking at your identity or you're looking at your values, those kinds of things. Because I know you have a lot of lived experience. So let me see. Hold on. Let me look above. Oh, so wait, I am looking above. You are looking at success with monetary rewards. Did I not look high enough? So, okay, yeah, send again. Sorry about that. I didn't see it. I'll keep looking. So basically, who are you becoming today? You're changing all the time. You're not the same as you were when you were 5. You're not the same as you were when you were 15. And you're going to have more aspects to your identity as you get older. So think about that. Give yourself 30 seconds. That's it. Just 30 seconds to think about that. Think about it in the morning, like when you get up. Who do you want to be today? Then look at your energy. In the day, a lot of people get a little tired around 2. Do something like give yourself a tiny micro rest. 5 minutes, just doing nothing if you want, or playing with your dogs, or doing whatever you want to do. And think of having a novelty moment. Go sit in a different chair. Go someplace new when you do that. Just try to, move things around a little bit, but nothing that's going to really jar you, just something minor. Sit outside if you can. If you live in a place where you can do that, do something that's new, or have a tiny little learning moment. In the evenings, you can do things like every day you can say, what have I contributed today? And that can be, did you make somebody feel good? Did you do something nice for somebody? Did you make a difference in some way? And not monetarily or concrete in that way. What have I done that could make a difference in some kind of way? And one thing that you appreciate about your aging experience. So what is one thing that you might appreciate about it? Maybe it's that you have more patience. Maybe it's that you have closer friends, fewer but closer friends. Maybe you know how to get enjoyment in certain things. It could be anything. Think abstractly with it. And then once a week at least, reach out to one person that you want to have a deeper relationship with. That can be a relative, a friend. Maybe it's somebody that you were connected with years ago and you want to reach out. Try that just once a week. And then every month, try to do something that either scares you or excites you. For me, I took a leap in my 40s. No, I was almost 50, or maybe I was 50 when I decided to give a TED Talk. Okay, so that scared me and it excited me. Go do something that's out of this world. Like you're like, that's a crazy, wild idea. I'm going to go give it a shot, and do it. And start a ritual for yourself, something that you can start today. Whatever that is, a ritual that is good for you, one that makes you, yeah, I did. And it's on aging. So, So yeah, it's out there. So if you do something that really, is a ritual that you could start today, it could be anything at all. Maybe it's sitting and just doing something for 1 minute where you think to yourself and you sit in a chair. It doesn't have to be that you're going to do some kind of brand new ritual that is like you have to think about it. Just do one tiny little thing. Um, so think to yourself, if you can, what's one thing that you believed about aging that you no longer believe? Is there anything at all that you believe about aging, that you used to believe about it that you no longer believe? Um, what's your next chapter going to focus on? And what's something that you're proud to have learned that you learned in midlife or at an age that is, more recent? Um, Oh, I love it. That's funny. So anytime you did briefings, you would always close with thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Awesome. So you have to give one now. You have to go give one. So challenge yourself to go do that. And then you can actually say it at the end. That'd be kind of cool. So I hope that this is helpful. I write about aging. I write about midlife and psychology today. You can find anything I write there. I also have a Substack that you can check out. I do a lot more, that's less psychology today related in my Substack, and that's called The Right Side of 40. I urge anyone who wants to do something new to start your own Substack. It's free. I'm not getting paid. There's no sponsorship or anything. Just go do it. It's good for you to be able to connect with others in a different way. They have a video component. They have, so if you don't like to write, you can, do all kinds of podcasting kinds of things with it. But it might be something new that you could do without having to go out too far out of your comfort zone. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope everybody has a really good day. I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Yes, stay active. You're right. Definitely stay active.